Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science Society. Tonight, we're drifting into one of the most mysterious and essential experiences in human existence. Something you do every single day, or at least something you're meant to do. Something that occupies roughly a third of your entire life, yet remains shrouded in questions that scientists are only beginning to answer. We're exploring sleep itself, that strange state where consciousness fades and the world disappears, yet your brain and body remain astonishingly active. Sleep is perhaps the most paradoxical aspect of being alive. On the surface, it seems like pure vulnerability, a nightly surrender where we lie motionless and unaware. Yet, beneath this apparent stillness, your brain orchestrates an intricate performance of memory consolidation, cellular repair, emotional processing, and biological restoration. Your body regulates hormones, strengthens your immune system, and prepares you for another day of waking life. Sleep is not an absence of activity. It is a different kind of presence entirely. If you enjoy these quiet journeys through the mysteries of science, I'd invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, or share a thought in the comments below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is rest. Let your eyes relax. Allow your body to soften, and let your mind drift gently into wonder as we begin this exploration of the sleeping world. Let's start by understanding what sleep actually looks like from the inside. When researchers first began studying sleep in the early 20th century, they assumed it was simply a passive state, a shutdown of consciousness where the brain went dark and the body rested quietly until morning. This view persisted for decades, comfortable in its simplicity. Sleep was seen as the opposite of wakefulness, nothing more than a period of biological downtime. Then, in the 1920s, something remarkable happened. A German psychiatrist named Hans Berger invented a device that could record electrical activity in the human brain through electrodes placed on the scalp. This invention, called the electroencephalogram, or EEG, would revolutionize our understanding of consciousness itself. When researchers began recording brain activity during sleep, they discovered something utterly unexpected. The sleeping brain was not quiet at all. It pulsed with rhythmic waves of electrical activity, patterns that shifted and changed throughout the night in ways that suggested something far more complex than simple rest. By the 1950s, researchers had identified something even more startling. They noticed that several times each night, sleepers entered a peculiar state where their eyes moved rapidly beneath closed lids. Their breathing became irregular, and their brain waves looked remarkably similar to those of waking consciousness. They called this rapid eye movement sleep, or REM sleep, and it turned out to be the stage most strongly associated with vivid dreaming. This discovery shattered the notion that sleep was a uniform state of unconsciousness, and opened the door to understanding sleep as a dynamic, structured process with distinct stages, each serving different purposes. Today, we know that sleep unfolds in predictable patterns throughout the night, cycling through different stages that each have their own signature patterns of brain activity and bodily functions. These stages fall into two major categories. The first is non-rapid eye movement sleep, usually abbreviated as NREM sleep, which itself divides into several substages. The second is that remarkable REM sleep, where dreams become vivid and strange. When you first drift off to sleep, you enter the lightest stage of NREM sleep, sometimes called Stage 1. This is that brief transitional zone between wakefulness and true sleep, a threshold state that usually lasts only a few minutes. Your muscles begin to relax, your heart rate slows, and your breathing becomes more regular. Your brain waves shift from the fast, irregular patterns of waking consciousness to slower, more rhythmic oscillations. If someone were to wake you during this stage, you might not even realize you had been asleep at all. You might report having been simply resting with your eyes closed. From there, you sink deeper into Stage 2, which occupies more of your total sleep time than any other stage. Your body temperature drops slightly. Your heart rate continues to slow. Your brain waves continue their gradual shift toward slower frequencies, though they're punctuated by brief bursts of rapid activity called sleep spindles and sudden sharp wave complexes known as K-complexes. These peculiar electrical events are thought to play important roles in memory consolidation and in protecting sleep from disruption by external sounds. During Stage 2, you're definitely asleep, but you could still be awakened fairly easily. Then comes the plunge into deep sleep, Stages 3 and 4 of NREM, often grouped together and called slow wave sleep. This is where your brain waves slow dramatically into large, rolling oscillations called delta waves. These waves are so much slower and larger than waking brain activity that they represent a fundamentally different state of neural organization. Your muscles relax completely. Your breathing becomes deep and rhythmic. Your blood pressure drops. This is the sleep from which it's hardest to wake. The sleep that leaves you groggy and disoriented if someone shakes you awake. Slow wave sleep is thought to be the most restorative phase for physical recovery and certain types of memory consolidation. After cycling through these progressively deeper stages of NREM sleep, something extraordinary happens. Instead of continuing deeper or emerging back toward wakefulness, your brain shifts into an entirely different mode. You enter REM sleep. Your brain waves suddenly speed up, becoming fast and irregular, looking almost indistinguishable from those of an awake person. Your eyes dart rapidly from side to side beneath closed lids. Your heart rate increases and becomes variable. Your breathing speeds up and loses its steady rhythm. Yet paradoxically, most of your voluntary muscles become temporarily paralyzed, a protective mechanism that prevents you from acting out your dreams. If you were awakened during REM sleep, you would likely report having been in the middle of a vivid, often bizarre dream. These stages don't occur randomly. They follow a structured cycle that repeats throughout the night, roughly every 90 minutes. You typically begin with NREM stages, progressing from light sleep through deep, slow wave sleep, then shifting into a period of REM sleep before the cycle begins again. However, the composition of these cycles changes as the night progresses. Early in the night, your sleep is dominated by deep, slow wave sleep, with only brief periods of REM. As morning approaches, slow wave sleep becomes less prominent, and REM periods grow longer and more frequent. Your final sleep cycle before waking might consist almost entirely of REM sleep, which is why you're more likely to remember your dreams if you wake naturally in the morning rather than being jolted awake by an alarm earlier in the night. This architectural structure of sleep, this predictable cycling through stages, appears to be universal among humans and is found in varying forms across many animal species. It suggests that each stage serves distinct biological functions important enough that evolution has preserved this complex choreography across millions of years. When we peer inside the sleeping brain using modern neuroimaging techniques, we see patterns of activity that challenge any remaining assumptions about sleep as a passive state. Different regions of the brain show dramatically different levels of activity during different sleep stages, and the patterns of connectivity between regions shift in ways that reflect the unique functions of each stage. During the deepest stages of NREM sleep, overall brain activity decreases compared to wakefulness, but this decrease is neither uniform nor complete. Certain regions, particularly in the frontal cortex, show substantial reductions in activity. These are areas involved in executive function, decision-making, and conscious awareness. Their temporary quieting may partly explain why we lose conscious awareness during sleep. Yet other brain regions remain quite active. The hippocampus, a structure deep within the brain that's crucial for forming new memories, shows rhythmic patterns of activity during slow-wave sleep that appear to replay and consolidate experiences from the previous day. The thalamus, a central hub that normally relays sensory information to the rest of the brain during waking, begins to filter incoming signals more aggressively during NREM sleep. It essentially closes the gates, preventing most external sounds, sensations, and sights from reaching conscious awareness. This gating function is part of what allows you to sleep through the night despite the constant background noise of your environment. However, the thalamus doesn't block everything. Certain sounds, particularly those with emotional significance like your name or a baby's cry, can still break through and wake you. This selective filtering shows that even during sleep, your brain continues to monitor your surroundings, evaluating which stimuli are important enough to warrant awakening. During REM sleep, the brain's activity map transforms dramatically. Blood flow and metabolic activity increase in many regions, sometimes reaching or even exceeding waking levels. The visual cortex lights up with activity, even though your eyes are closed and no visual information is entering from the outside world. This internal activation of visual processing areas may partly explain why dreams during REM sleep are so rich in visual imagery. The limbic system, a network of structures involved in emotion and memory, becomes highly active. This might account for the intense emotions that often color our dreams, where feelings of fear, joy, or anxiety can be far more vivid than they typically are during waking life. Meanwhile, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, an area critical for logical reasoning, planning, and reality testing, shows markedly reduced activity during REM sleep. This deactivation may explain some of the bizarre qualities of dreams. Without the prefrontal cortex fully engaged, the dreaming mind accepts impossible scenarios as perfectly reasonable. You can fly through the air, converse with people who died years ago, or watch your childhood home transform into a castle, and none of it seems strange until you wake. The sleeping brain, particularly during REM, operates under different rules than the waking brain. The patterns of neural firing during sleep are not random noise. Researchers have discovered that during slow-wave sleep, large populations of neurons synchronize their activity, firing together in slow, rhythmic waves that sweep across the cortex. These synchronized oscillations appear to facilitate communication between the hippocampus and the cortex, allowing newly formed memories stored temporarily in the hippocampus to be gradually transferred to more permanent storage sites in the cortical regions. This process, occurring silently while you sleep, is thought to be one of the primary mechanisms by which sleep strengthens memory. During REM sleep, neural firing patterns look quite different. Instead of the synchronized waves of slow-wave sleep, neurons fire in patterns that are more variable and complex, similar to waking activity. Some researchers have found that patterns of neural activity from waking experiences are replayed during REM sleep, but in a transformed, fragmentary way. These replays may contribute to the integration of new experiences with existing knowledge, weaving today's events into the broader narrative of your life's memories. The neurochemical environment of the sleeping brain also undergoes profound changes. During waking hours, your brain is bathed in a complex mixture of neurotransmitters and neuromodulators, including norepinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, and acetylcholine. These chemicals help regulate attention, motivation, mood, and learning. As you transition into NREM sleep, particularly slow-wave sleep, levels of most of these neuromodulators drop significantly. The reduction in neuromodulators like norepinephrine and acetylcholine is thought to create an ideal chemical environment for memory consolidation, allowing neural circuits to reorganize without the interference of ongoing sensory input and active engagement with the external world. During REM sleep, this neurochemical landscape shifts again. Acetylcholine levels rise sharply, approaching or even exceeding waking levels, while norepinephrine and serotonin drop to near zero. This unique chemical mixture may facilitate the kind of free associative, emotionally charged thinking that characterizes dreams. The high acetylcholine supports the activation of memory systems and the generation of vivid sensory experiences, while the absence of norepinephrine may allow emotional memories to be processed and integrated without triggering the stress response that would occur if you encountered similar emotions while awake. Perhaps no aspect of sleep has captured human imagination more persistently than dreaming. Dreams have been interpreted as messages from gods, windows into the unconscious, random noise from a resting brain, and everything in between. Modern neuroscience has revealed that while dreams are indeed products of brain activity during sleep, they're far from random noise. They appear to reflect meaningful cognitive processes, particularly related to memory and emotion. The relationship between sleep and memory has become one of the most well-established findings in sleep science. Across dozens of studies spanning decades, researchers have consistently found that sleep following learning improves the memory performance when people are tested hours or days later. This benefit appears for many different types of learning, from memorizing word lists to mastering motor skills to understanding complex concepts. The effect is robust enough that it's now considered one of the primary functions of sleep. Different types of memory appear to benefit from different stages of sleep. declarative memory, the kind of memory that involves facts and events you can consciously recall, seems to benefit particularly from slow wave sleep. When researchers selectively deprive people of slow wave sleep while allowing them to experience other sleep stages, their performance on declarative memory tasks suffers. The slow oscillations and sleep spindles that characterize slow wave sleep appear to coordinate the transfer of information from the hippocampus, where memories are initially encoded, to the cortex, where they're stored more permanently. Over time, this process allows memories to become independent of the hippocampus and integrated into your broader knowledge base. Procedural memory, which involves skills and habits like riding a bicycle or playing a musical instrument, shows a more complex relationship with sleep. Some procedural memories benefit from slow wave sleep, others from REM sleep, and some from both. A pianist learning a new piece, for example, might find that after a night's sleep, their fingers move more smoothly across the keys, as if their hands have somehow practiced during the night. This improvement doesn't just reflect the passage of time or the reduction of fatigue. It appears to depend on actual neural processing during sleep. Processing that refines and consolidates the motor programs needed for skilled performance. Emotional memories, particularly those with strong negative emotions, appear to be processed preferentially during REM sleep. During this stage, the brain appears to do something remarkable with emotional experiences. It seems to strengthen the core content of emotional memories, the what happened, while simultaneously reducing the physiological stress response associated with those memories. This process may be crucial for emotional health. It allows you to learn from emotionally significant experiences without remaining trapped in the intense emotional reactions they initially produced. When this REM sleep-mediated emotional processing is disrupted, as it is in some cases of post-traumatic stress disorder, people may remain stuck reliving traumatic experiences with the same intensity as when they first occurred. So, where do dreams fit into this picture of sleep-dependent memory processing? The content of dreams has long puzzled researchers because dreams rarely involve straightforward replays of recent experiences. When you dream, you don't simply watch recordings of your day like reviewing security footage. Instead, dreams weave together fragments of recent experiences with older memories, current concerns, and pure imagination in ways that often feel bizarre and disconnected. Yet, when researchers look more carefully at dream content, they find that recent experiences do appear, just not in the form of literal replays. Elements of your day, particularly those that were novel, emotional, or personally significant, tend to show up in dreams in fragmentary, transformed ways. You might dream about a stressful meeting, but in the dream, it takes place in your childhood home with people from different periods of your life all present at once. The setting changes, the characters shift, but the emotional core, the feeling of stress and evaluation, remains. This transformation of experiences in dreams may be part of what makes sleep-dependent memory processing so effective. By taking new experiences and interweaving them with existing memories and knowledge, the dreaming brain may be helping to find connections and patterns that weren't obvious during waking experience. Dreams might represent the brain's attempt to integrate today's experiences into the larger framework of everything you already know. To ask questions like, what does this new experience remind me of? How does it relate to other things I've experienced? What can I learn from it? Not all dreams are created equal. The characteristics of dreams change across the night, following the shifting architecture of sleep stages. Early in the night, when slow-wave sleep dominates, dreams tend to be more thought-like and mundane, often involving realistic scenarios from daily life. As the night progresses and REM periods grow longer, dreams become progressively more vivid, bizarre, and emotionally intense. The surreal, narrative-rich dreams that people typically think of when they imagine dreaming tend to come from the extended REM periods in the early morning hours. Some researchers have proposed that this progression reflects a systematic process of memory processing. Perhaps slow-wave sleep in the early night takes recent episodic memories and begins the work of extracting their essential elements and connections to other memories. Then, REM sleep in the later night continues this process, working at a more abstract level to integrate these extracted elements into broader networks of knowledge and understanding. The dreams you experience in each stage might be reflections of these different levels of processing, with early night dreams showing more direct connections to recent experiences and later night dreams showing more creative, abstract integration. However, it's important to note that the precise function of dreaming itself remains a matter of scientific debate. We know that the brain is active during sleep and that this activity serves important functions, particularly for memory consolidation. We know that dreams are a form of conscious experience that occurs during this sleep-dependent brain activity. But whether the conscious experience of dreaming itself serves a function, or whether it's simply a side effect of the functional neural processing occurring during sleep, remains an open question. It's possible that consciousness during sleep, like consciousness during waking, emerges from certain patterns of brain activity without necessarily serving an additional function beyond what that brain activity already accomplishes. While your brain engages in its nightly work of memory processing and neural reorganization, the rest of your body also undergoes profound changes during sleep. Sleep is not merely a brain phenomenon. It's a whole-body process that affects virtually every system and organ. One of the most obvious physical changes during sleep involves your cardiovascular system. As you progress into deeper stages of NREM sleep, your heart rate slows, sometimes dropping to rates far below what you'd experience while resting quietly during the day. Your blood pressure also decreases, giving your cardiovascular system a sustained period of reduced demand. This nightly decrease in blood pressure is so consistent and important that people who don't show this normal dip, often because of sleep disorders or fragmented sleep, face increased risks of cardiovascular disease. Your heart and blood vessels need this regular period of reduced stress, this nightly rest within the rest. Your breathing also changes profoundly. During NREM sleep, breathing becomes slow, deep, and remarkably regular, an almost metronomic rhythm that reflects the reduced metabolic demands of the sleeping body. During REM sleep, this regularity dissolves. Breathing becomes irregular and variable, sometimes rapid and shallow, other times slow and deep, shifting unpredictably from moment to moment. This irregularity is part of the general loss of regulation that characterizes REM sleep, where many normally homeostatic processes temporarily lose their tight control. Your body temperature follows its own circadian rhythm, dropping several hours before you typically fall asleep and reaching its lowest point in the early morning hours. This decrease in core body temperature isn't just correlated with sleep. It appears to actively promote sleep onset. The drop in temperature signals to your body that it's time to sleep, and facilitating heat loss through dilation of the blood vessels in your hands and feet can actually help you fall asleep faster. This is why a warm bath before bed can paradoxically help you sleep better. The bath raises your core temperature, but when you step out into cooler air, your body compensates by dilating blood vessels and releasing heat, which then triggers the temperature drop that promotes sleep. Sleep profoundly influences your hormonal system, with some hormones being released primarily during sleep and others being suppressed. Growth hormone, crucial for tissue repair and cellular growth, surges during slow-wave sleep. In children and adolescents, growth hormone drives physical development. In adults, it continues to play important roles in maintaining and repairing tissues throughout the body. The fact that growth hormone is released mainly during sleep helps explain why children who don't get adequate sleep may experience slowed growth and why adults who are chronically sleep-deprived may experience impaired wound healing and tissue repair. Cortisol, often called the stress hormone, follows an inverse pattern. Levels are lowest during the early hours of sleep and begin to rise in the early morning hours, reaching their peak shortly after you wake. This cortisol awakening response helps prepare your body for the demands of the upcoming day, increasing alertness and mobilizing energy resources. However, chronic sleep deprivation disrupts this normal cortisol rhythm, often leading to elevated cortisol levels throughout the day and night, which can have wide-ranging negative health effects. Leptin and ghrelin, two hormones that regulate hunger and satiety, are also strongly influenced by sleep. Leptin, which signals fullness, typically increases during sleep, while ghrelin, which signals hunger, decreases. This makes biological sense. You don't need to feel hungry during sleep because you're not eating. However, when sleep is cut short, this hormonal balance is disrupted. Leptin levels drop, and ghrelin levels rise, leaving you feeling hungrier than you would have after a full night of sleep. This hormonal disruption may be one mechanism linking chronic sleep deprivation to weight gain and obesity. Your immune system also appears to depend critically on sleep for optimal function. During sleep, your body produces and releases cytokines, proteins that help coordinate immune responses to infection and inflammation. Some of these cytokines are released specifically during sleep, and their production is reduced when sleep is disrupted. Studies have shown that people who are sleep-deprived are more susceptible to infections. In one famous experiment, researchers exposed participants to rhinovirus, the virus that causes the common cold. Those who had slept less than 7 hours per night in the weeks before exposure were nearly 3 times more likely to develop a cold than those who had slept 8 hours or more. Even vaccination responses appear to depend on adequate sleep. People who get vaccinated and then sleep well in the following nights develop stronger antibody responses than those who are sleep-deprived after vaccination. Your immune system needs sleep to learn and to respond effectively to threats. Without adequate rest, it functions below capacity, leaving you vulnerable. At the cellular level, sleep appears to be a period of intense repair and maintenance. Your cells experience damage throughout the day from normal metabolic processes, environmental stressors, and simple wear and tear. During sleep, many repair mechanisms become more active. DNA damage is repaired more efficiently. Proteins that were damaged or misfolded are broken down and recycled. Cellular waste products are cleared more effectively. Perhaps most remarkably, recent research has revealed that the brain has its own waste clearance system that becomes significantly more active during sleep. This system, called the glymphatic system, uses cerebrospinal fluid to flush metabolic waste products out of the brain tissue. During sleep, the space between brain cells actually expands slightly, allowing this fluid to flow more freely and carry away accumulated waste. Among the waste products cleared during sleep are proteins like beta amyloid, which accumulates in the brains of people with Alzheimer's disease. This discovery suggests that chronic sleep deprivation might contribute to neurodegenerative diseases by allowing toxic proteins to build up over time rather than being cleared away each night. Given all these processes that occur during sleep, processes that affect memory, emotion, physical repair, immune function, and countless other aspects of health and functioning, a natural question arises. What makes us sleep in the first place? What are the biological mechanisms that ensure we spend roughly a third of our lives in this altered state of consciousness? Two main systems regulate sleep and wakefulness in your body, and they operate according to different principles. The first is called the sleep-wake homeostatic drive, and it works much like hunger or thirst. The longer you've been awake, the greater your pressure to sleep becomes. Stay awake for 16 hours and you'll feel ready for bed. Stay awake for 24 hours, and the urge to sleep becomes overwhelming, nearly impossible to resist. This homeostatic pressure builds through the accumulation of a chemical called adenosine in your brain. Adenosine is a byproduct of cellular energy use. Every time your neurons fire, every time you think a thought or process a sensation, your cells use adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, as fuel. As ATP is broken down, adenosine accumulates. Throughout your waking hours, as your brain remains active, adenosine levels steadily rise. This buildup is detected by specialized receptors, particularly in an area of the brain called the basal forebrain, and the rising adenosine signal translates into the sensation of sleepiness. When you finally sleep, adenosine levels gradually decline. By the time you wake in the morning, most of the accumulated adenosine has been cleared away, and your homeostatic sleep pressure has reset to low levels, leaving you feeling refreshed and alert. This is why sleep deprivation has cumulative effects. If you sleep only 6 hours tonight, you'll clear some adenosine, but not all of it. Tomorrow, you'll start the day with higher adenosine levels than normal, and you'll reach high sleepiness levels earlier in the day. Over multiple days of insufficient sleep, this sleep debt compounds, making you progressively sleepier. Caffeine, the world's most popular psychoactive drug, works by blocking adenosine receptors. When you drink coffee, the caffeine molecules fit into adenosine receptor sites, preventing adenosine from binding and signaling sleepiness. However, caffeine doesn't actually reduce adenosine levels. It just blocks their effects temporarily. When the caffeine wears off, all that accumulated adenosine can suddenly bind to receptors, which is why you sometimes experience a crash after coffee's effects fade. The second major system regulating sleep is your circadian rhythm, an internal biological clock that runs on a roughly 24-hour cycle. This clock is generated by a small cluster of neurons in the hypothalamus called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. These neurons have an intrinsic rhythm of activity that cycles with a period close to 24 hours, even in the absence of any external time cues. This internal timing system coordinates sleep and wakefulness with the natural cycle of day and night, promoting alertness during daylight hours and sleepiness during darkness. Light is the most powerful signal for resetting and synchronizing your circadian clock. When light enters your eyes, it's detected not just by the rods and cones that create vision, but also by a special population of light-sensitive cells in the retina that send signals directly to the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Bright light, particularly blue wavelengths that are abundant in daylight, tells your circadian clock that it's daytime. This signal suppresses the production of melatonin, a hormone released by the pineal gland that promotes sleepiness. When darkness falls, the absence of light signal allows melatonin production to ramp up, gradually increasing sleepiness and preparing your body for sleep. Your circadian clock does more than just regulate sleep and wakefulness. It coordinates rhythms in virtually every system in your body. Your body temperature, hormone levels, digestive processes, immune function, and even gene expression in your cells all show circadian patterns. This internal coordination ensures that different body systems are optimized for the appropriate time of day. Your digestive system is more efficient at processing food during daytime hours when you're typically eating. Your immune system shows enhanced responses to infections during the night when you're asleep and less likely to encounter new pathogens. The interaction between homeostatic sleep pressure and circadian rhythms creates the actual pattern of sleepiness you experience throughout the day. In the morning, when you first wake, your homeostatic sleep pressure is low because you've just cleared adenosine through sleep. However, your circadian alerting signal is also ramping up, promoting wakefulness. As the day progresses, homeostatic pressure builds as adenosine accumulates. But your circadian alerting signal also strengthens, helping you stay awake. In the late afternoon and early evening, your circadian alerting signal reaches its peak, which is why many people experience a second wind of alertness, even though they've been awake for many hours. As the evening progresses into night, your circadian signal begins to promote sleepiness instead of alertness, and this combines with your high homeostatic sleep pressure to create strong sleepiness. During the night, as you sleep and clear adenosine, homeostatic pressure decreases, but your circadian system continues to promote sleep, keeping you asleep even as sleep pressure wanes. In the early morning hours, your circadian system begins transitioning back toward promoting wakefulness, which helps you wake up even if you haven't completely cleared all homeostatic sleep pressure. This elegant two-process system ensures both that you sleep regularly and that your sleep occurs at the appropriate time of day. Without homeostatic regulation, you might not build enough sleep pressure to fall asleep reliably. Without circadian regulation, your sleep might drift to different times each day, disconnected from the natural light-dark cycle. Genetics also plays a significant role in shaping individual sleep patterns. Researchers have identified numerous genes that influence various aspects of sleep, including genes that affect how long you need to sleep, whether you're naturally a morning person or evening person, and your vulnerability to sleep disorders. Some people carry genetic variants that allow them to function well on less sleep than average. Others carry variants that make them particularly sensitive to the effects of sleep deprivation. The most dramatic examples of genetic influences on sleep are seen in rare inherited sleep disorders. Fatal familial insomnia, for instance, is caused by a specific genetic mutation that gradually destroys the brain's ability to sleep, leading eventually to complete insomnia and death. Familial advanced sleep phase disorder, caused by mutations in clock genes, leads affected individuals to become sleepy in the early evening and wake in the early morning. Their entire circadian cycle shifted hours earlier than typical. These extreme cases demonstrate that sleep is fundamentally a biological phenomenon, as much a product of your genes and brain chemistry as any other aspect of your physiology. Sleep needs and patterns change dramatically across the human lifespan, from infancy through old age, reflecting the changing demands and developmental stages of the body and brain. Newborn infants sleep for the majority of each day, often 16 to 18 hours out of every 24. However, their sleep is fragmentary, distributed across many short bouts rather than consolidated into the long nighttime sleep period that adults experience. Newborns cycle between sleep and wakefulness every few hours, waking frequently to feed regardless of whether it's day or night. This pattern reflects both their high nutritional needs, requiring frequent feeding, and the immaturity of their circadian rhythms. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, the brain's master clock, is not yet fully functional at birth, and it takes several months for robust circadian rhythms to develop. Infant sleep also differs qualitatively from adult sleep. Newborns spend roughly half their sleep time in a state similar to REM sleep, far more than the 20 to 25% that adults typically experience. This high proportion of REM sleep may reflect rapid brain development occurring during infancy. REM sleep appears to be particularly important for neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections and prune unnecessary ones. During the first years of life, when the brain is developing at an explosive pace, forming billions of new synaptic connections and organizing itself based on experience, the extended time in REM sleep may provide crucial support for this developmental process. As infants grow into toddlers and young children, their total sleep time gradually decreases, but they still need significantly more sleep than adults, typically 11 to 14 hours per day for toddlers and 10 to 13 hours for school-age children. Sleep gradually consolidates into a single long nighttime period, though many children also continue to nap during the day for the first few years. The persistence of high sleep needs throughout childhood may reflect ongoing brain development and the immense learning that occurs during these years. Adolescence brings another dramatic shift in sleep patterns. Teenagers often struggle to fall asleep at typical bedtimes and have difficulty waking up in the morning. This isn't simply rebelliousness or poor sleep habits. During adolescence, the circadian clock itself shifts toward later timing, a phenomenon called delayed sleep phase. This biological shift, driven by changes in brain development and hormonal systems during puberty, means that teenagers naturally feel alert later into the evening and want to sleep later in the morning than they did as children, or than they will again as adults. This circadian shift creates a significant challenge because most schools start early in the morning, forcing teenagers to wake during what is still nighttime according to their internal clock. Research has shown that when school start times are delayed to better align with adolescent circadian biology, teenagers get more sleep, show improved academic performance, report better mood, and even have fewer car accidents. Despite needing 8 to 10 hours of sleep per night, many teenagers get far less due to this mismatch between biology and social schedules. Adult sleep patterns stabilize somewhat, with most adults requiring 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night, though individual needs vary. The circadian tendency toward morningness or eveningness, sometimes called chronotype, shows wide variation among adults. Some people are natural early risers who feel alert in the morning and become sleepy early in the evening. Others are evening types who struggle with early mornings but feel most alert and productive late in the day. These differences appear to have genetic components and represent real biological variation rather than mere preferences. As people move into older adulthood, sleep patterns change again. Older adults often report difficulty falling asleep, more frequent awakenings during the night, and earlier morning waking times. Sleep becomes lighter and more fragmented. The deep, slow wave sleep that dominates early adulthood decreases significantly with age, sometimes disappearing almost entirely in the elderly. The biological basis for these age-related changes in sleep is not fully understood, but likely involves gradual changes in the brain systems that generate and regulate sleep, as well as increased prevalence of medical conditions and medications that can disrupt sleep. Interestingly, despite these changes in sleep structure, the fundamental need for sleep does not appear to decrease substantially with age. Older adults still need roughly the same total sleep time as younger adults, typically 7 to 8 hours per night. The widespread belief that elderly people need less sleep appears to be a misconception. Rather than needing less sleep, older adults often struggle to obtain adequate sleep due to changes in sleep quality and increased sleep disturbances. The changes in sleep across the lifespan highlight that sleep is not a single static phenomenon, but rather a dynamic process that adapts to the changing needs of the developing, mature, and aging body and brain. Given the fundamental importance of sleep for so many aspects of health and functioning, it should come as no surprise that insufficient sleep has wide-ranging and often serious consequences. Sleep deprivation studies, in which researchers deliberately keep people awake for extended periods, have revealed just how dependent our normal functioning is on adequate rest. The most immediate and obvious effects of sleep loss involve cognition. After even a single night of poor sleep, people show measurable declines in attention, reaction time, and vigilance. Tasks that require sustained concentration become more difficult. You're more likely to make errors, to miss important details, to zone out momentarily. After multiple nights of inadequate sleep, these impairments compound. People become increasingly unable to focus, their thoughts become disorganized, and their ability to form new memories deteriorates. Interestingly, people who are sleep deprived often don't accurately perceive how impaired they are. In studies where participants are kept on restricted sleep schedules for multiple days, they report feeling sleepy and performing poorly at first, but after several days, their subjective reports of sleepiness and impairment often plateau, even as objective measures of their performance continue to decline. This disconnect between perceived and actual impairment is particularly dangerous because it means that chronically sleep-deprived people may genuinely believe they're functioning adequately when they're actually operating at significantly reduced capacity. The cognitive effects of sleep deprivation extend beyond simple attention and vigilance to affect higher-order thinking. Problem-solving becomes more difficult. Creative thinking suffers. The ability to integrate information and see connections between different ideas declines. People become more rigid in their thinking, less able to adapt to changing circumstances or to generate innovative solutions to problems. The prefrontal cortex, which is so critical for these executive functions, appears to be particularly vulnerable to sleep deprivation. Emotional regulation also suffers dramatically with insufficient sleep. Sleep-deprived people report more negative emotions and fewer positive ones. They're more irritable, more anxious, and more likely to interpret ambiguous situations negatively. Brain imaging studies reveal that sleep deprivation increases activity in the amygdala, a brain structure involved in emotional responses, particularly fear and anxiety. At the same time, sleep deprivation reduces connectivity between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, weakening the prefrontal cortex's normal role in regulating emotional responses. This combination leaves sleep-deprived people with heightened emotional reactivity and reduced ability to modulate their emotional responses, a recipe for emotional dysregulation. The link between sleep and mental health runs deep. Insomnia and other sleep disorders are common in people with depression, anxiety disorders, and other psychiatric conditions. For many years, these sleep disturbances were viewed as symptoms of the underlying psychiatric condition. However, research increasingly suggests that the relationship is bidirectional. Sleep disturbances don't just result from mental health problems. They can also cause or worsen them. People with chronic insomnia have significantly elevated risks of developing depression and anxiety disorders. Successfully treating sleep disorders often leads to improvements in mood and anxiety, even without direct treatment of the mental health condition. The physical health consequences of chronic sleep deprivation are equally concerning. Epidemiological studies, which track large populations over time, have consistently found associations between short sleep duration and increased risk of numerous health problems. People who regularly sleep less than 6 hours per night have increased risks of obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and even early death compared to those who sleep 7 to 8 hours. The mechanisms linking sleep loss to physical health problems are complex and multifaceted. As mentioned earlier, sleep deprivation disrupts hormonal regulation, including hormones involved in appetite and metabolism. This disruption can lead to weight gain and metabolic dysfunction over time. Sleep loss also triggers inflammatory processes in the body. Chronic inflammation is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and many other conditions. Sleep deprivation impairs glucose metabolism, making it harder for your body to regulate blood sugar levels. Even a single night of complete sleep deprivation can induce a pre-diabetic state in healthy individuals. The immune consequences of chronic sleep deprivation may contribute to increased susceptibility to infections and possibly even to cancer. Some studies have found associations between short sleep duration and increased cancer risk, though these findings remain somewhat controversial and the mechanisms are not fully understood. One possibility involves immune surveillance, the process by which your immune system identifies and destroys abnormal cells, including cancerous ones, before they can develop into tumors. This surveillance process may be compromised by chronic sleep deprivation. Perhaps most alarmingly, sleep deprivation impairs performance on tasks requiring vigilance and quick reactions in ways that closely parallel the effects of alcohol intoxication. Research has shown that staying awake for 17 to 19 hours produces impairments in reaction time and performance equivalent to having a blood alcohol concentration of 0.05%, the legal limit for driving in many places. After 24 hours of wakefulness, impairments are equivalent to a blood alcohol level of 0.1%, well above the legal limit everywhere. These findings have serious implications for drowsy driving, which is responsible for thousands of fatal car crashes every year. Given the serious consequences of sleep deprivation, understanding sleep disorders, conditions that prevent people from getting adequate quality or quantity of sleep, becomes critically important. Insomnia, the most common sleep disorder, involves difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, or waking too early, despite adequate opportunity for sleep. People with insomnia experience sleep difficulties at least 3 nights per week for at least 3 months, and these difficulties cause significant distress or impairment in daytime functioning. Insomnia is not just sleeping poorly occasionally, which everyone experiences. It's a persistent pattern of sleep disruption that interferes with daily life. Insomnia can have many causes. Sometimes it develops in response to stress, medical conditions, or medications. Other times it becomes self-perpetuating through learned associations and maladaptive behaviors. People with chronic insomnia often develop anxiety about sleep itself. They worry during the day about whether they'll be able to sleep that night, and when bedtime arrives, they become tense and hypervigilant, monitoring their body for signs of sleepiness, which paradoxically makes falling asleep more difficult. Over time, the bed and bedroom become associated with frustration and wakefulness rather than relaxation and sleep, perpetuating the problem. Effective treatments for insomnia include cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, which addresses both the thought patterns and behaviors that maintain insomnia. This therapy helps people challenge unhelpful beliefs about sleep, develop better sleep habits, and relearn the association between bed and sleep. For many people with chronic insomnia, cognitive behavioral therapy is more effective than sleeping pills and produces longer-lasting improvements. Sleep apnea is another common and potentially serious sleep disorder. In sleep apnea, breathing repeatedly stops and starts during sleep. The most common form, obstructive sleep apnea, occurs when the throat muscles relax during sleep, allowing the soft tissue to collapse and block the airway. When this happens, oxygen levels drop and the brain partially awakens, restoring muscle tone and reopening the airway. Often, the person gasps or chokes as breathing resumes. These events can occur dozens or even hundreds of times per night, severely fragmenting sleep, even though the person may not remember most of the awakenings. The consequences of untreated sleep apnea extend beyond poor sleep quality. The repeated drops in oxygen levels stress the cardiovascular system, increasing blood pressure and heart rate. Over time, this stress contributes to increased risk of hypertension, heart attack, stroke, and heart failure. The fragmented sleep leads to excessive daytime sleepiness, cognitive impairment, and increased accident risk. Fortunately, effective treatments exist. Continuous positive airway pressure, or CPAP, devices deliver pressurized air through a mask during sleep, keeping airways open and preventing apnea events. Other treatments include oral appliances that reposition the jaw to keep airways open, positional therapy for people whose apnea occurs primarily when sleeping on their back, and in some cases, surgical interventions to remove excess tissue or reposition anatomical structures. Narcolepsy is a less common but profoundly disabling sleep disorder characterized by excessive daytime sleepiness and abnormal REM sleep phenomena. People with narcolepsy experience sudden, overwhelming urges to sleep during the day, sometimes falling asleep involuntarily in the middle of activities. Many also experience cataplexy, sudden episodes of muscle weakness or paralysis triggered by strong emotions, particularly laughter or surprise. During cataplexy, the muscle paralysis that normally occurs only during REM sleep intrudes into waking, causing people to suddenly become weak or even collapse while fully conscious. Narcolepsy results from loss of neurons that produce a neurotransmitter called orexin, also known as hypocretin. These neurons, located in the hypothalamus, play crucial roles in maintaining wakefulness and regulating the transitions between sleep stages. Without adequate orexin signaling, the boundaries between sleep and wakefulness become unstable, allowing elements of sleep, particularly REM sleep, to intrude into waking life. While narcolepsy currently has no cure, medications can help manage symptoms, and lifestyle modifications can reduce the impact on daily functioning. Other sleep disorders include restless legs syndrome, characterized by uncomfortable sensations in the legs and an irresistible urge to move them, particularly in the evening and during sleep. Periodic limb movement disorder, involving repetitive leg movements during sleep. And various parasomnias, which are unusual behaviors occurring during sleep, such as sleepwalking, sleep talking, night terrors, or REM sleep behavior disorder, in which people act out their dreams physically because the normal muscle paralysis of REM sleep is absent. Each of these disorders disrupts sleep in different ways, but they all prevent people from obtaining the restorative sleep they need, leading to daytime impairments and health consequences. Understanding that these are medical conditions rather than personal failings or bad habits is important, both for reducing stigma and for ensuring people seek appropriate treatment. Despite decades of intensive research, sleep retains many mysteries. Perhaps the most fundamental question remains: why do we sleep at all? This might seem like a question with an obvious answer. We sleep because we're tired, because our bodies need rest. But this answer is superficial. Many physiological needs could theoretically be met while remaining awake and simply resting quietly. Your heart rate can slow, your metabolism can decrease, and you can rest your muscles all without losing consciousness. Yet sleep, with its complete withdrawal from awareness and responsiveness to the environment, is nearly universal among animals with nervous systems. This suggests that sleep serves functions so important that the vulnerability of unconsciousness is an acceptable cost. Researchers have proposed many theories about sleep's functions. Some emphasize energy conservation, suggesting that sleep evolved to force inactivity during times when activity would be inefficient or dangerous. Others emphasize restoration, proposing that sleep allows for cellular and tissue repair that can't occur as efficiently during waking. The memory consolidation functions we've discussed represent another important line of thinking. The recent discovery of the glymphatic system and sleep's role in clearing metabolic waste has added new weight to theories emphasizing sleep's restorative and housekeeping functions. The truth is probably that sleep serves multiple functions. Evolution tends to be opportunistic, co-opting existing systems for new purposes. A behavior that initially evolved for one reason may come to serve additional functions over time. Sleep likely evolved to promote energy conservation and safety during circadian phases when activity would be inefficient. Once organisms were spending time in this reduced activity state anyway, evolution probably selected for additional processes that could take advantage of this offline period, such as memory consolidation, waste clearance, immune function, and cellular repair. Sleep may be multifunctional precisely because it was already happening for other reasons. Another enduring mystery involves individual differences in sleep need. While the average adult needs 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night, some people consistently sleep less and appear to function fine, while others need more. Are these genuine differences in biological sleep need, or do they reflect differences in how people perceive and respond to sleep deprivation? Emerging genetic research suggests that at least some of these differences are real. Rare genetic variants have been identified that allow carriers to function well on significantly less sleep than average, sometimes just 4 to 6 hours per night. These individuals show no signs of accumulating sleep debt. Their brains appear to somehow accomplish in less time what most brains need more time to complete. Understanding the mechanisms underlying these efficient sleeper phenotypes could potentially reveal fundamental insights into what sleep actually does and whether it might be possible to enhance sleep efficiency in typical sleepers. However, it's important to note that these efficient sleepers are rare. Most people who claim to need only 5 or 6 hours of sleep are actually chronically sleep deprived, even if they've adapted to the point where they no longer perceive how impaired they are. The evolution of sleep itself raises fascinating questions. Sleep, or something like it, appears to exist in virtually all animals with nervous systems, even very simple ones. Fruit flies show periods of behavioral quiescence with many sleep-like properties. Even jellyfish, which lack a centralized brain, show rhythmic patterns of activity and rest. This remarkable conservation suggests that sleep-like states evolved very early in the history of animal life and have been maintained across hundreds of millions of years because they serve essential functions. Yet, the specific characteristics of sleep vary enormously across species. Dolphins and some other marine mammals engage in unihemispheric sleep, where one half of the brain sleeps while the other remains awake, allowing them to continue swimming and surfacing to breathe. Some birds appear to do something similar during long migrations, literally sleeping on the wing. Giraffes sleep only about 2 hours per day, in short bouts of a few minutes each. In contrast, brown bats sleep nearly 20 hours per day. Some animals show clear REM sleep. Others show something that might be REM-like, and still others show no obvious equivalent of REM sleep at all. These variations presumably reflect different evolutionary pressures and ecological niches. An animal that faces high predation risk might evolve to sleep less, or to sleep in ways that maintain some vigilance. An animal with high metabolic demands or limited food availability might sleep more to conserve energy. Understanding these evolutionary adaptations could help illuminate the fundamental functions that sleep serves across the animal kingdom. Future research directions in sleep science are as varied as the mysteries that remain. Advanced brain imaging techniques are allowing researchers to observe the sleeping brain with unprecedented detail, potentially revealing the specific neural mechanisms underlying memory consolidation and other sleep-dependent processes. Genetic approaches are identifying the molecular machinery that generates and regulates sleep, which could eventually lead to new treatments for sleep disorders. Studies of sleep across different species and across development are helping to disentangle which aspects of sleep are universal necessities and which are species-specific or age-specific adaptations. Practical applications of sleep science are also expanding. Sleep education programs are teaching people about sleep hygiene, the habits and environmental factors that promote good sleep. Workplace policies are beginning to acknowledge the importance of adequate rest, with some companies experimenting with flexible schedules or nap facilities. Public health campaigns are raising awareness about drowsy driving and the health consequences of chronic sleep deprivation. Some schools are pushing start times later to better align with adolescent circadian rhythms. Technology is creating both new challenges and new opportunities for sleep. Electronic devices with bright screens emit blue light that can suppress melatonin and delay sleep onset, and the engaging content they provide can extend waking hours. At the same time, new tools are being developed to help people sleep better. From smartphone apps that provide cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia to smart beds that adjust temperature and position to optimize sleep to wearable devices that track sleep patterns and provide feedback about sleep quality. As research continues, our understanding of sleep grows deeper and more nuanced. We're learning that sleep is not a luxury or a passive state of shutdown, but rather an active, essential process that serves fundamental biological functions. We're discovering the intricate mechanisms by which sleep affects every system in the body, and the serious consequences when sleep is chronically inadequate. As we drift toward the end of this journey through the science of sleep, allow yourself to feel the gentle settling of your mind. You've traveled through the stages of sleep, from light drowsiness through deep, slow wave sleep to the dreaming landscapes of REM. You've explored the sleeping brain, watching neural patterns shift and reorganize. You've followed the cascade of physical changes that sweep through your body each night as you rest. You've learned how memories strengthen, how emotions are processed, how cellular waste is cleared, how your immune system recharges, all while you lie unconscious. You've seen how sleep needs change across a lifetime, from the fragmentary sleep of infants through the delayed rhythms of adolescence to the lighter, more fragmented sleep of older adults. You've understood the serious consequences when sleep is cut short or disrupted: the cognitive fog, the emotional instability, the physical health risks. You've met the disorders that rob people of rest, from insomnia's anxious wakefulness to sleep apnea's interrupted breathing to narcolepsy's collapsed boundaries between sleep and wake. And you've glimpsed the mysteries that remain, the questions about why we sleep at all, about what dreams truly mean, about how evolution shaped this universal yet diverse phenomenon we call sleep. If you found value in this exploration of sleep science, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to the Sleepy Science Society. Your support helps this channel grow and allows more people to discover these peaceful journeys through the mysteries of our world. Share your thoughts about sleep in the comments below. What aspects of sleep fascinate you most? What questions do you still have? But for now, your work is done. The information has washed out over you like gentle waves, and whether you remember every detail or let most of it drift away, something of this knowledge will remain, settling quietly into your understanding. Let your shoulders fall. Let your breathing slow. Let the day release its hold on you. Sleep is waiting, patient and constant, ready to receive you into its restorative embrace. Your brain is ready to begin its nightly work of organizing memories, processing emotions, and preparing you for tomorrow. Your body is ready to rest, to repair, to restore. The night is here to cradle you. Your mind has done enough. Settle into the quiet. Good night.